Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hold on 1 second. 1 second. Hello, and thank you for joining Sharon King Worldwide. I am Sharon May King. Today, my special guest is Alissa Jones. Welcome, Alissa. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. How is it doing in Texas today?
It's actually going good in Texas. It's been a beautiful day.
That's beautiful. I am going to read you Alissa bio, and we're going to get into who she is. She's a phenomenal woman, and I know her for several years, and I'm so honored to call her my sister queen. She's amazing and she's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Alissa Rachelle Jones is a survivor, public speaker, award winning author. She received the Barack Obama Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Alissa known firsthand of many challenges. She was sexually abused at the age of 11. She's a survivor of domestic violence. Alissa founded Survivor with Voices Foundation, where she's able to cater to the needs of survivors. So, Alissa, please tell us more about who you are. Let the audience know who you are.
Well, you know what? I always tell people I am a survivor and a survivor advocate, but more importantly, I'm human. And I say that because I go through so much just like everybody else. But, when you get in the public eye, people expect you not to be human. So I like to say that because a lot of times, us as women, we put so much on us where people do not give us the room or the grace to be human. So I say that I'm human because a lot of times, even though we go through what we go through, as the bio said, I've been through sexual abuse, I've been in domestic violence relationships, and I put an S on that because it was a cycle that I continued to go through because you get into being addicted to dysfunction, and so you think that is normal. So I like to, go on and just tell people I'm human because a lot of times people don't give us the grace to be human. But I'm a mother to three beautiful children. I'm a friend, and for the most part, I'm a daughter and I'm a child of God.
Amen. Amen. Alicia, I know that you founded um, Survivors with Voices. Can you tell us
hmm
more about that?
Well, to be honest with you, Sharon, Survivors with Voices birthed out of the relationship I had with my mother. Um, you know, like I said before, I was sexually abused at the age of 11, and I blamed my mother for that for many years because I felt like she didn't protect me.
Mhm.
So in 2013, my mother passed away, which actually today is her birthday.
Happy birthday.
And yeah, and so when she passed away in 2013, we had just started 3 years prior to her passing away. We had just started rebuilding our relationship because I had so much hatred in my heart for my mother because I felt like, she didn't protect me. She allowed this man to move into our basement and he violated me. And when I told her, I felt like nothing was done. She didn't get me counseling. We just moved on like nothing happened. And, back in the day, what goes on in the house stays in the house. So I suffered in silence for 23 years. So those 3 years, as I started rebuilding the relationship with her, Sharon, I didn't know God was only giving me those 3 years. And so that's why when I created the organization, I felt like it was important for survivors to have a platform and be able to unlock their voice and use their voice. Because, see, that was detrimental for me. Because in 2010, when I started using my voice and I was telling my mother exactly how I felt, I blamed her for my abuse. But by this time I shared this with her, Sharon, I had did so much to hurt my mother intentionally because I just wanted her to feel the pain that I felt when I was abused and she didn't protect me. So I went through a cycle of when my mother became ill, I became her power of attorney. I purposely stole money from her because, see, my mother loved money. And so I was trying to hurt her and make her feel the pain that I felt. So me and my mother didn't talk for several years behind that. And so when she got really, really more ill in 2010. And so the sad part, Sharon, was I had to go and find my mother. At this point, I didn't know where she lived at. I had to ask people, where she was. And then when I showed up at her door, my mother came to the door, Sharon. She was in a wheelchair. And she looked at me and just started crying. And it was just like tears because we hadn't seen each other for a year to 2 years.
Right.
After I had did this to her. And so, I apologized because for one, she had went through so many health challenges that I wasn't there for because we settled for not talking instead of communicating and fixing the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I tell you I walked in that door and she began to cry and I just told her why I stole the money. I said, I just wanted you to go back to the past and save me. And I said, I apologize to you because I was holding you to an impossible task because there was nothing you could do to go back and change the hands of time. Right. My mother looked at me, Sharon, and she began to cry. And she said, you know what? I couldn't protect you because I didn't nobody protect me. She said, I was held at gunpoint by my own brother and raped at the age of 12 years old. She said my mother had passed away. And she said, then I thought I was escaping him. And I went to my sister in Springfield, Ohio, and her husband raped me. So she said, all those years that happened to me, when it happened to you, I didn't know how to protect you because didn't nobody protect me. When I tell you that was an aha moment for me, because all these years I had been mad at my mother and purposely hurting her, and she was going through the same pain that I was going through. And if I would have had a conversation with her, I wouldn't have lost almost 20 years trying to hurt her. So in 2010, we started rebuilding our relationship and getting back close. And in 2013, October 16th, my mother took her last breath.
I'm so sorry to hear that. And I know today is her birthday and she's shining down on you. What I've realized, especially in Black families, we don't talk about the sexual abuse that happened to our children, especially for our daughters. That is not something that the African American community talk about. We don't want to put shame on the family. Right. As we speak right now, probably an aunt or cousin or brother is sexually molesting a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, and nobody talk about this because you bring it into the family. Right. These are conversations we need to have with our children. Baby, let me tell you something. We need to get around the kitchen table and talk to our children, our grandchildren. Grandpa is not supposed to touch you this way. Uncle is not supposed to touch you this way. And see what happened with us not having these conversations, the patterns continue in the family because nobody put a stop to it and nobody held them accountable of what they did. So the cycle continued because it happened to grandma, it happened to mom, and now it's happening to me. And these are the conversations we're not having at the kitchen table because we don't want our families to look bad. So we brush everything under the rug. And there are children hurting. There's family hurting. There's family that don't talk right now because of things that happened when grandma and big mama was alive. Because we're not addressing the hurt. We're not addressing the pain because most Black people don't believe in counseling and therapy. They want to push everything under the rug. This don't happen in our household. The biggest myth that people could ever say is this don't happen to us. Right. Because guess what? That's what's going to happen to you. And so the thing about it is these are conversations we need to have. Had your mother had that conversation with you, but she didn't know how to,
Right.
Didn't know how to because nobody taught her. We as Black women, everybody look at us as strong. They don't
Mm-hmm.
realize we
Mm-hmm.
don't have no choice but to be strong.
None.
We have no choice
None.
because they
Yeah.
put us at the top of the pedestal. We can't fail. So
Mm-hmm.
even
Mm-hmm.
if you're failing and you need somebody to talk to, you will never say anything because you won't get that full 100% support.
Right. Right. Right.
You know? And I was raped too. I was raped, and
I know
I couldn't tell
that.
anybody. Yeah, I couldn't tell
Mm-hmm.
anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I never spoke about it. I never
Mm-hmm.
spoke about it. I also was
Wow.
in a domestic abuse relationship, but I did
Right.
go to counseling. And I
Mm-hmm.
did stop that pattern in my children, and we talked about everything. And I
Yeah.
told my children it's okay for us to go to counseling. You know, my daughter's
Mm-hmm.
30 years old and she's a nurse.
Wow. Yeah. You
So
look great.
thank you. I aged them. I aged them. I let.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing about it is so important to talk to our children because not
Mm-hmm.
only are they raping girls, they're raping boys.
Mm-hmm.
So we
They are.
have children that are playing out and having problems at school or just having a lot of problems, but there's so many stuff internal going on with them and they don't know how to talk about it because you don't know if they're being threatened. If you tell, we're going to hurt you and you know you're going to be taken away from your mother. These are conversations we need to have. And so what
Mm-hmm.
happened as I was listening to you, you had a lot of anger and a lot of
Oh
hate
yeah.
towards your
Mm-hmm.
mom.
Mm-hmm.
Since that happened, did you seek counseling?
Well, that was the thing. I did not at first.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I started the organization and started learning how important counseling was.
Mhm.
Because one of the reasons that I did start the organization was because I was trying to get survivors that were like minded together to support one another and use their voice.
Mhm.
Because when I did sit in front of a counselor, Sharon, for me, it wasn't that connection. They can book tell you how to get past something, but I wanted that connection with somebody that had been through it, could understand it, and tell me how they got through it. So that's how and why I birthed Survivors with Voices, because going to counseling for me wasn't pretty much, I could say it wasn't what I expected
Mhm.
because I didn't feel the connection of them understanding what I went through. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense because I spoke to
Mm-hmm.
several people and they had also made that same statement.
Mm-hmm.
Going to college to be a counselor or a therapist and
Mm-hmm.
actually living through and then become a therapist is two different
Mm-hmm.
things. It's two
Right.
different things. So you're
Right.
telling me how I should feel because this is what you went to school for,
Right. Right.
but you have
And that
not
was
actually
that
went
was
through
the thing for me. Yeah, that was the thing for me. Because they sat me down and gave me strategies
it.
to help, but it still didn't solve my issue of the men I was choosing in my life. It didn't still solve my issues because, to be honest with you, I had daddy issues. You know what I mean? I had a stepfather, but him and my mother divorced at the age of 8, and then at 11, I'm getting sexually abused.
Right.
So my hopes and dreams of a daddy father relationship was diminished, and so I started leaning to males
Of course.
for that attention. And
Mhm.
so it's really, for me, that connection was missing.
Okay. Wow. How I know you mentioned you have 3 children, beautiful
I
children.
do. I do.
How is your relationship with your children of what you have went through? How did you make sure that that did not happen or affect your children?
Well, I'll say that it hasn't affected them, but I will say that both of my boys I feel have daddy issues. And because both of them, when they got older, that's who they gravitated to. So both of my boys live with their dads right now, even though they're 22 and 21. So that was something that I couldn't escape because I refused to be in a relationship that was toxic, even if it meant raising my children on my own. Me and my daughter, we have a different type of relationship. Me and my daughter are pretty close, as people see on social media. Now, am I going to say we perfect? No, we're not. But for the most part, I really try to do a little bit differently, things differently than my mother done with me. One of the things that I will say that me and my daughter do hang out and do things, but that's one of the things that my mother did with me as well. So I think over the years I had to grow into being a better communicator when it came, to my children, because my mother wasn't a communicator for me. I'm not going to say the road has been easy. I made some mistakes. I'm not the perfect mom, but I'm trying to learn and grow from that, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes. You
Mhm.
know what? You do an amazing job. I see you're always posting with your children. You're always doing something with your children.
I'm trying.
So we as mothers, we do what we have to do for our children.
Right, right,
No matter
right,
what.
right,
No matter what, we do what we have to do for our children. I commend you for that.
right.
Doing a great job. And
Well, I appreciate that.
you're welcome. There's a lot of parents out there, whatever the situation is, they don't realize sometimes if we put our personal feelings to the side and let's be
Hmm.
parents to the children that we made,
Right,
they wasn't asked to be brought here.
right,
Things
right.
could be different for the children,
Exactly.
could be
Yeah.
so different for the children. I
Hmm.
also know that you are an author because I know you have two
I
books.
am. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What are the names of your book?
The Stones That Built Me Strong, and that comes with a book and a workbook. And then I have a compilation book with some of the survivors from the organization that's called The Survivor Behind the Name.
Very nice. And where can your books be purchased at?
Amazon.com.
Awesome. Now I know you have
Hmm.
a lot going on
I
and
do.
you have a lot on your plate and
Yes.
you're a phenomenal woman and I give you that because you
Thank you.
are.
I appreciate that. I
You're
appreciate
very
that.
welcome. Let's touch on domestic violence.
Hmm. Hmm.
Domestic violence is big right now. We're in a
It
pandemic.
is.
A lot is
Hmm.
going on. People are more together. They have to see each other more. I
Right.
know you was involved in domestic violence. Let's
Hmm.
talk about that some more.
Well, even with the domestic violence, when I first went through it, I didn't really know how to deal with it because my ex was very controlling.
Mhm.
So when the things became controlling, I really didn't know how to react because I was young and naive and he was older than me. Um, you know, um, and what I've learned from that situation is that it was a learned behavior on his behalf because he watched his father, beat his mother to act right.
Mm,
So I was in that particular situation. And then going from there, it just seems like I kept going into a toxic situation after toxic situation. And I don't know why. I was addicted to that type of man, but it just seemed to go on. Now, even with my last relationship, um, for me, I'm not going to say that our whole marriage was bad because it was not, but it got to a point where it was controlling. And I was a little bit more equipped to recognize the signs than I was in the beginning. And so there was a lot of emotional abuse and verbal abuse and even financial abuse, and those are some of the abuses that we don't talk about as a whole because a lot of times people don't understand that emotional and verbal abuse is still abuse.
mhm,
And so I think for me, I realized that I had to leave the situation
mhm.
when it became physical.
Okay.
And I will tell you this, Sharon, which is the hardest thing for me. There's nothing worse than having to leave somebody that you believe you love, that you love them, but they're not best for you. And you still have to make a decision to walk away because it's becoming nothing but a cycle. And that's where I was, and that's what I had to do. that was the hardest thing for me because in my heart I still loved him. Um, and even now, I'm still going through it. He has done some things to purposely hurt me, but at the same time, I still stand strong on the fact that this is the best because it was toxic.
It was toxic.
It was toxic.
A lot of women stay in relationship because of finances. A
Hmm.
lot of women stay in
Hmm.
domestic abuse relationship because of finances,
I was
because
there.
they
Hmm.
want to live a comfortable life.
Right.
Um, they have low self-esteem.
Hmm.
Mama said that you need to keep your family together.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
I would say this too. I would say that I stayed 2 years longer than what I should have.
mhm.
I was with this gentleman for 10 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
I wanted to leave at year 8.
Mm,
It was when I went to the church, and the church encouraged you to stay because they don't believe in divorce. And
okay.
it didn't matter about the emotional abuse or the verbal abuse because they felt like, well, because he wasn't hitting you and it wasn't physical, you need to stay and work it out.
Oh, wow.
And I believe I shared on social media, like, I had announced, I had left my husband, and because it wasn't physical, a lot of people encouraged me to stay. And even though there was days I was waking up wanting to die, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just like none of that mattered because I started getting fixated on the image of what it looks like. You don't leave your husband, you don't, because of what it looks like. And if you leave your husband, it invalidates you, it makes you insignificant. And so when you get to believe in that, and then on top of, okay, he was the breadwinner at one point in time, so how do you leave? And I'm gonna tell you, with the situation, he packed up, took all of our money, and went to California. When he did that, God put me in a situation where I had to survive. I had to think about me and my daughter. I had to think about, okay, how am I going to get a roof over my head because this man just took all of our money and just went off to California, which is miles away. And I had to go into survival mode.
Mm,
And if it wasn't for one of my good friends, Michelle, to give me the money to say, you know what, I got you. Here's the deposit, go get you and your daughter a place. Everything just lined up to be where I'm at now, to get in my place to move forward. And even once I got in my own place, he came back and I still tried again. And it wasn't until the beginning, after January 2020, after taking him back, I would probably say for the 15th time,
mhm,
that I knew it wasn't going to work. And
mhm.
I knew that I had to make a decision because my health was being affected. Here I am on blood pressure medicine and I'm only 40. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, my health, anxiety, I'm taking medication to go to sleep. So, a lot of things was affecting my health and my mind.
mm,
And I was just like, this is a decision I have to make. And as much as I wanted to backtrack even then and say, you know what, let me just stay with him because I'm married, I couldn't do it
mhm.
because, and to be honest, people say there's no price on peace. And that's the place I'm in right now.
Wow. I'm so sorry to hear all of that. Sometimes we go back to what's comfortable because
Yep.
it's what we're familiar with. And
Hmm.
so the pattern and the cycle never stop because we're comfortable with being in
Right.
a relationship where we're being abused, we're being disrespected, we're being
Hmm.
traumatized because that's all we know. That's all
Right.
we've seen. That's all we know how to survive. And we don't know any better.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's better out there.
Yeah.
And I know I was also in a domestic relationship when I was married to my ex-husband over 15 years ago. You know,
Wow.
I've been there,
Mhm.
done
Mhm.
that. And I had to
Mhm.
make a conscious decision of what am
Yeah.
I going to do, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I left and I had nothing. It was me and the kids in Brooklyn and we had nothing. And I started from there.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is you keep on going back and keep on going back until nothing exists. And then you walk away because there's nothing more to come back to. But until
Right.
you get to that part of your life, you keep
Mhm.
on doing
Mhm.
a cycle. It's a cycle.
Yeah.
It's
You
a
do.
pattern.
Yeah. And exactly that's what it became. And so, even now, it's been hard because, you know, how do I want to put it? He's moved on, but he hasn't moved on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So
You
he's
can't
moved
have your
on, but
cake
only
and eat
to
it
make me
too.
jealous.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
So so it's just been one of those things where it's more agony, more hatred that's building up, and it's just one of those things where, it's like, okay, God. And you get the second question, second guessing yourself, like, okay, did I make the right decision? But then when you think and look at the bigger picture, you're like, yeah, because at the end of the day, I'll still be in that cycle. So, but they do that to make you question yourself. They do that on purpose because they don't ever want to admit that they're the problem. They want you to think that it's you. So it was so funny because I posted the other day that, sometimes people don't leave you for somebody better. They leave you so they don't have to change themselves because that person doesn't know the real them yet.
Oh, wow.
So, and and it's just what it is, because a lot of times people will go from somebody to somebody because they don't want to work on themselves. They don't want to change themselves.
No, I totally understand and I totally get it. And I remember when I was married, my ex-husband
Mhm.
moved in our best friend into the apartment. I still had my keys in Brooklyn. And I
Mhm.
remember just going over there for a couple of things. And she moved in. Now, when she moved in, she was pregnant.
Wow.
I had no idea.
Wow.
So I totally understand and I totally get it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
my question to you is, do you think that the cycle of the trauma relationship has been broken? Did you break that cycle?
Um, Sharon, I hope I have. I'm more intentional
Okay.
about who I entertain.
Mhm.
Um, this dating game, I keep telling people, you probably seen some of my posts, I said this dating game got pee in it. Like the dating pool got pee in it because I'm like, it's just these men these days and the mentality that they have. But I noticed that my tolerance is a lot shorter. A lot of stuff that I would deal with, I'm not dealing with it. And I'm just being patient on, what I prayed for and what I'm looking for. And if that's not it, I don't, I don't have the time for it. And it's just so funny because I just remember going through a season where, we take anybody that is potential or a project and say, hey, he got potential. I can, make him into XYZ. And we roll with that. And I refuse to do that anymore,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah. You know, I
Hmm.
I wouldn't even know how the dating game is. I've been out of it for so long. I
Sharon, when I tell you, I'm like, and this is almost makes you be like, you know what? I should have just stayed married. Like this is horrible. But I like no, I wouldn't take the season that I'm in now over what I came from,
yeah.
So
I think I work so much and have I don't have the patience for a lot of things.
mhm,
Have
mhm.
more conversation to see where it's going.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm guilty of shutting it down.
No, me too.
I'm
Me too.
shutting it down. And I protect my children, so I don't introduce nobody to my boys. I'm
Right,
very
right.
private, and
Yeah.
I know what I want. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
very limited, very private, and I know what I want. So I just shut
Yeah.
down, you know. But I haven't been out there. I
Mhm.
heard it is a mess.
It is a hot mess.
I heard it's a mess, you know.
A hot mess.
And the thing about it too, I've seen even on the news, and I try not to watch news because it's so depressing. We have
Mhm.
to be so careful of who we bring around our children because the men are sexually molesting the boyfriends. They, you know, you just meet a guy and you know him for a month. Next thing you know, he's babysitting your kid, and you come home, police everywhere because they done kill your child or sexually abuse your child. You know,
Mhm.
so the whole dating game of everything have changed.
Right, it has.
Let me ask you, what advice would you give a single mom that is dating, knowing your background of what happened to you at the age of 11?
Outside of that, just for a single mom that is dating, is definitely pay attention to the red flags. A lot of times when we're dating, we do not pay attention to the red flags because we are so, I call it the goo goo gaga phase.
Yeah.
And then two, you want to be mindful of, if you have small children, of
Mhm.
what they're telling you. You know what I mean? And just kind of, I wouldn't leave them alone right off, but just stay tuned with getting to know somebody and knowing their character. Ask questions. One of the things that I did not do dating prior to is asking questions,
Mhm.
getting to know somebody, taking the time. You know how you meet somebody in about a week or two, you so in Google Gaga that you're in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? They
Mhm.
moving in. You know what I mean? Just everything is moving
Right.
fast versus God speed. And so you don't really take the time to know somebody. And then by the time you really get to know them, you're already stuck in a situation that you really can't get out of
Mm.
because you didn't take that time.
Wow.
Hmm.
What about the women that are going through domestic violence right now and don't want to leave because he have provided a lifestyle for them? What about those women?
Those women, you have to ask yourself, is the lifestyle more important than your life?
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to be uncomfortable for God to get you where you need to be in. And that was me.
Mhm.
I had to get to a point where I was uncomfortable. Moving into this condo where I'm at is definitely not the lifestyle I was used to, but I'm glad that I didn't become a statistic and my daughter has to grow up without me being here.
Mm.
So starting over for me was a journey, but it was worth it. So even if you have to start over, being uncomfortable sometimes is necessary, because you can be a statistic and turn into a hashtag.
That is so true. And you know, I was
Hmm.
listening to the show the other day, and the woman said a lot of women also stay in relationship because their female friends advise them wrong.
Hmm.
You know, it's so important to have the right people in your circle, the right
Hmm.
people in your corner, and that's in everything you do. I've always say you need a even in business, you need a think team, not a gossip train. But
Hmm.
there are a lot of women out there that are advising their friends, their girlfriends, sister girl wrong
Hmm.
because they really don't believe that you could provide for yourself.
Right.
It is so sad.
Hmm.
It is
Hmm.
so sad.
Yep.
Let me ask you, as far as your foundation, Survivor with Voices,
Hmm.
how could they get in contact with you?
A lot of survivors reach out to me through social media. On my Facebook page, Alissa Rachelle. Um, I have a Facebook page for Survivors with Voices. and I am the one that receives those messages. A lot of times, survivors sends me stories and things like that about what they've been through. So,
So can you list all the social media website that you're on?
Survivors with Voices through Facebook. I am on Instagram, SWV Foundation, and then Alissa Rachelle.
Alissa Rachelle. Now let's talk about you receiving the Barack Obama Lifetime Achievement Award. Let's talk about that. That must have been so amazing for you. Let's talk about that. How was it? How was it when
it was a good experience. It was a really good experience because, you know, to get the Barack Obama Achievement Award, you have to have over 4,000 community service hours. And so that just attribute to what I have done in the community for survivors nationwide. I'm in 8 cities and have 8 chapter presidents. And it was just a great, humbling experience to receive just that type of award with him being in office. And it was just a great experience. So
that is amazing. Congratulations. Now you did
thank
mention
you.
just now, you're very welcome. You are in 8 cities?
I am in 8 cities.
I think your video went off just now.
Okay, hold on just a second. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, there I am. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Yes, I'm in 8 cities. Columbus, Ohio, Atlanta, Virginia, Philly, Maryland, Washington, and Houston.
Houston, nice.
Very
nice. I know we're going through COVID right now and everything.
Yes.
Closed down. And I remember you used to have events before the shutdown.
I did.
So they could always contact you when hopefully everything go back to normal soon.
Yeah, and then, you know, I am planning a sexual abuse event for next year. So one of the things I'm going to do is going to be limited seating, but we'll provide masks and things like that and do everything COVID ready because, you know, I think with events like what I have, you know, in survivors and the nature of what we have, it's very important to touch people.
Right. And a lot of people are going through a lot. A lot of people need help. You know, a lot of people don't know how to speak up for themselves. Because we growing up, we didn't have that great communication level.
Right.
We don't talk about anything. We just hit it on the table. And so a lot of trauma, generational trauma, a lot of people like to say generational curse, but I call it generational trauma because nobody took the time to break the circle and say, hey, it stops here. The buck stopped here with my family and my kids. This is what happened to me. And this is what is not going to happen to my children. And you know what, even in relationships, I was talking to my girlfriend the other day. Even when you meet somebody, I know we're jumping back and forth. Even when you meet someone in relationship, a lot of people don't stop and ask, how is your mental health? Have you ever been to a mental institution? And that's the real. That's
right.
Real.
That should be a dating question.
Listen, you know, have you ever been to the mental institution?
And if they're not honest, you're going to have to do your own background check.
Right. What medication are you on? You know, schizophrenia. What do you have going on? And those are the things you don't know. And there you get involved in somebody, and then you have children with them, and the children have special needs because of what they did not tell you. And it's so important. Oh my God, it is so important to know the background of people.
It does.
You know, and not only that, I wanted to touch on AIDS, because when I used to volunteer at St. Mary's in Brooklyn, young children for the first time having sex and contact, full-blown AIDS.
Wow.
You know, and that's not a conversation people have. You know, you know, we met, let's both of us go to the clinic and take an AIDS test. Do people do
Yeah,
that? Do
it
people
doesn't
do stuff
happen.
like
It
that?
does not happen. No, it doesn't happen at all.
No, they just use a
Hmm.
condom and keep on going.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. Wow.
Hmm.
You know, this is such a great conversation. It's such a great topic we're having. I'm so proud of
Thank
you.
you.
You're
I
such,
appreciate that.
you welcome. You're such a strong woman and such a
Thank
role
you.
model for women all over. Do you
I
ever
appreciate
think,
that.
do you ever think about doing anything international?
I do. It's just putting it together and being able to do that. But of course,
You will do that. That's awesome. Well,
hmm
I just wanted to say thank you so much for being on Sharon King.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Is there any last minute advice you would like to give any women out there before
I
we?
do.
Yes.
I do. I want to speak to that survivor out there that may be in a challenging time, whether you're dealing with being sexually abused or, have dealt with a domestic violence, situation that, don't give up. Um, don't give up on believing that you can be free from that. Manifest can't say it. Manifestation is real, and I say that because I used to imagine being where I am today and being at a place of peace. I didn't know what peace was until I walked out of that toxic relationship. So I say to you that reach out to any assistance and help that may be available to you to get off that situation, and then connect to an organization like Survivors with Voices, or even step up and get counseling to help you mentally and emotionally, because that's more important than anything.
Amen. Thank you so much. I wish
Thank you.
you welcome. I wish you continued success.
I appreciate
Please,
that.
you welcome. Please follow Alissa Jones, Survivor with Voices.
Hmm.
You can reach her on social media. Survivor with Voices also have their own Facebook page. I thank you
Correct.
and I sincerely appreciate you for being on
Thank
Sharon
you.
King Worldwide. You're very welcome. You have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a great
Thank
weekend.
you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.